Alright, hello and welcome. My name is Jason Welsh and I want to show you the process of electroforming, making jewelry using electricity and copper, and how I kind of run through the process. You can take this a lot of different ways, but here's some examples. So here's an amethyst ring. This is straight out of the bath right now. It hasn't been patinaed or polished at all, so this is kind of what it looks like raw. Here's one in the finishing stage, it's labeled and ready to be sold. And I got my ring too. So I love how nature takes its course on these. Like you can see where the copper actually grows around the stone because the stone is conductive in certain areas. So we paint them with conductive paint. And in some cases we have to use filler so that, let's say the stone is here, it has a filler in this area to keep the stone upright. In the very rare, very rough stages, this is kind of what they look like. And then what we do is take that and we can carve into that epoxy. The epoxy is completely as hard as stone. It takes about a day to mature. So you can see there's a band here, and the band has some texture to it. And that texture will pick up in the electroforming process. And depending on what texture we put into it, you can get different variations, like so many different variations, it's pathetic. So, it's a fun, I wouldn't even call it a hobby because it's very, very expensive after a while to get going. But there's a lot of people that are interested in it, so I thought I'd make a video. So, copper is actually the cheapest thing to buy. Except for in the electroforming bath itself. You get kind of pricey there. So you can buy a spool of this, 12 gauge wire. This is good for female rings. And then you go 10 or 8 for dude rings. A lot of hammers, okay? So you can buy hammers, and then what you do is you take a fiber wheel, and you can just mar the crap out of these things. And by doing that, it allows you to pound out texture into your metal. So you strip all the coating off. And you get this nice texture. Okay. And then you can see copper is really hard until it gets heated. So what we do is heat it with a torch until it turns red, and then dip it in water, and it becomes very easy to bend. So I'm going to do that. One of the things is to be able to show you the whole process is kind of hard. But I'll show you as many steps as I can along the way. Okay, so this is kind of like not even, it might not be a how-to video, but you can see the different processes and how it works. And then as I go into it, maybe you can, the way I learned it is I was able to pull from different places on the internet, different YouTube videos, and refine the process. And I would say I've got it refined down to like almost 90%. I'm pretty proud of my setup. But I'll show you the way, and I'll go down to the next area. Alright, so I have a bit of copper here. It's been pounded with texture. I'm just going to put this in the vise. And I'm going to make it so it barely sticks in that vise. So I have the max amount. This is a Little Smith torch. It's probably the best thing I've ever bought, really. So it's a micro torch. Good for jewelry. Little Smith. This is a 3D printed ring. So basically I got this thing I printed and it allows me to mount the torch anywhere on metal. Okay. So give it some, and I'm running a propane oxygen mix. And this will heat up the copper pretty quick. I'll turn up the oxygen here. Speed the process along. Maybe give it some more. There we go. And what this will do, it will make the copper so it's super soft. We call it dead soft. Easy as that. We could throw it in a bucket of water, or we could wait. Being that I don't want to move the camera, I'm just going to wait. So I'll be back. Okay, so what I did is I took that piece of metal out of the vise, and you can see it's charred. And what I want to do is remove the charring through chemicals. So I put it in this pair of tweezers I got from Harbor Freight. Okay, this is dangling from the ceiling. There's a positive lead that is hooked up to a small 5-volt DC power supply. And then there is a negative voltage hooked up to this stainless steel. Yes, this is stainless steel, but you can see over time, basically bits of copper are attracted over to the stainless steel, so it gets kind of ugly, but it's still good to go. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking this and I'm dipping it into this tank of electroforming solution, or electrolyte. In this case I'm using pH minus. So you can get pH minus at your local hardware store. I'm using a ratio, it's very loose ratio, to about right here, from here into about, this is a 3-gallon bucket, so I got it 3/4 of a way. There's no going right or wrong with the solution. You could get it a little too much and it could get a little cloudy. In other words, there's some fumes that come off of this that are very not good for you at all. So this is a very well ventilated area that I'm in right now. I try to keep the exposure away from it, so it could put off sulfuric acid clouds. So we want to keep not too much of this in there because it will yield a lot of very nasty stuff. So if you're doing this, be very careful, wear a respirator. I got one on right now, and it's got to be a really good respirator too. So I'll show that to you here in a little bit. So we keep it in that tank for probably about 5-10 minutes. I usually walk away, come back, grab it out, and then it's perfect. It looks a little pink, and I think you can see it now. So if I wipe this off, you can see how it's a pinkish copper. It's definitely not shiny. So what it's doing is it's removing a small thin layer of this copper onto the stainless steel. So all that stripping is way better than sanding. Alright, I'll show you the next step when I get to it. Alright, so I have a piece of copper that just got done out of the bath. And I got my ring mandrel. So this is stainless steel. It works really good. This is one I got from I think Michaels, and you can see this is aluminum, and it wears pretty quick. So what I'm saying is, take the opportunity, go on Amazon and get yourself a stainless steel one of these, because they last a lot longer. I have very small marks scoring off very common ring sizes between 6 and 8. This is very soft copper. So what I'm doing here now is I'm just wrapping this in this range. Just like that. Then you get yourself a hammer that looks like this. It's a plastic hammer. Watch your fingers. I should talk. I'm looking through the little monitor as I'm doing this. And what this will do, this will harden the copper, but it will keep the texture. Now's a good time to do this, not after you build the ring. There. So now, if you can feel the difference, it's very hard. Like, I can press on this, and I'm putting some significant force on this, and before I could actually crush this, now I can't. So now the electrolysis or electroforming method on top of that will even make it stronger. So this ring, I mean, some of these rings I wear with all kinds of abuse. Like, we're talking about picking up rocks in my backyard, you know, cutting trees, all kinds of crazy stuff. So these get really hard because the electroforming process on top of the hardened annealed copper is just, it's almost, yeah, it's pretty strong. So I just built this, and you can see that I'm going to be wasting a lot of copper here, but it's good for educational purposes only. What I'm doing is cutting this straight across. And now I have this. And I can put these together like that. There's always a tiny bit of warpage because you're forming it on a mandrel. So I just kind of line that back. And now I just have to solder this. Alright, so let's do that. Okay, so I love this method right here. These are hemostats, and what I did is I put a rubber band on the hemostat. So basically it allows you to go like that, and then I put it in one of these helping hand jaws. Again, that's a very nice one. From Harbor Freight you can get those, or you can use anything really, but this thing really is priceless. It's my favorite tool. Go like that, bounce it in there. And then you take some silver solder. You get this silver bearing solder. This one's really old, but it's been in my family for generations. I've had it probably a good 8 to 10 years. It's really sad. You don't use a whole lot of it. So what you do, you cut yourself off a piece of this, a really small piece. And you put that right here. This is where dexterity comes in. Again, I'm kind of looking through a camera. Very cool thing. So if you take hypodermic needle, you can apply flux with one of these like very accurately. So this is a liquid flux by multi-purpose soldering fluid. So you just stab it in there, pull up some. And then you're just putting like a drop on it. But it's so nice how you can apply it in that area so well. Let's see if I can get this focused into that. Oh, right there, that's good. Alright, so we just take our torch. And this is the advantage of using a torch, because if you used a soldering iron right now, you would be trying to juggle that little small piece of solder to stay there, and that's not fun. With a torch, you could just keep it there and it will melt around it. So I'm just going to give it a really small flame here. Whoa, too much oxygen. There we go. Turn it way down. Not that I love the flame, it's just, it's a very sensitive torch sometimes. There we go. So that's how small I was trying to get the flame. Barely any oxygen whatsoever. There we go. Easy as that. Silver solder is incredibly hard. Now I even got harder solder than that I've been using nowadays, but it's a little more difficult to get, where this Stay Bright is pretty nice. If you're getting it, make sure it's about 80% silver, if not 90. Don't use any lead-based solder. Here's a good example of this stuff. So you can see 50% tin, 50% lead. Not good for jewelry at all. Alright, so the next step I'll show it to you in a sec. Alright, so this is my glue operation. So I take this ring. And since it's been chemically processed, as far as like stripped is concerned, it's going to be very conductive. Very conductive. There's nothing on the surface that's really, other than my oils for my hands, but and I should limit the amount of touch that I have on this ring, but just a little bit won't hurt. Okay, so take this glue gun, give it a little bit of glue. Put my ring up there. And then MaxiCure. Okay? This is a very strong glue. This is just to hold the gem into place as I get the epoxy around it. So this is kind of a two-step gluing process until I can get the copper to form around it. The copper is what's really holding it in place. The glue is just a way of keeping it there until the copper grows. And I got some peridot. Nice little chunk. Try not to get any super glue on any of the other pieces of metal, or the metal will not be conductive in that area. Oop. Yeah, and this is a bit like playing Operation. And mount it like that. There we go. So, boy, this camera is just super powerful. There we go. Nice, right? And you can see there's many of them around, so we can go to the next step. So I'll probably pick out one of those. Basically it's the same ones as far as how they're formed. I will probably pick, I like this Herkimer diamond, so we'll go produce this one as far as the next step is concerned. Okay, so I'll meet you over there. Oatly Fix-It Stick. This stuff's amazing. If you had a chance to get like 100 of these, you would get it, because you can make all kinds of good stuff out of this stuff. Now, how it works is, here's a piece of it. Just cut yourself off a nice little ringlet of it. Kind of like that. I like wearing gloves with this stuff. One, it's waterproof. So once it dries on your hands, you're done. For a couple days anyway. It stinks. And I don't think it's really good for you anyway. So I'll initially do the mixing with gloves. And you have to work very fast with this stuff. You have maybe 5 minutes at best, maybe 3. So it dries very quickly. It's acid proof, which is good because we're going to have to dip this in acid. It is every kind of solvent proof known to man. I can't find anything that touches it. Even xylene doesn't touch it. And that's a pretty evasive epoxy or enamel thinner. Acetone doesn't touch it. It's great. Okay, so we got a ring, and basically what I want to do is fill in the bottom side of this so it's supported on this. And I'm switching over to looking at what I'm doing through my own eyes instead of the viewport. You're going to end up carving this down with a Dremel. So you don't have to really get too pretty with it. The idea here is to keep it on, and then what I do is I trim it down a little bit with an X-Acto knife so it's got a flat bottom. And that one's done. As I said, you gotta work very quickly. No time to think. They do, okay, so I think it's they made a kneaded putty for these 28mm figures. It's called the green stuff. And that stuff works pretty good. And you got a 2-hour window. So if you want to do like something like sculpted instead of carved, you could do that. Just search for the green stuff. Or kneaded, N-K-N-E-E-D, it. It's blue and yellow. Alright, there we go, and I still got some putty left over, so might not be wasted. But it is starting to get hard, so gotta work fast. Trust me when I say this is harder than this. It's just I've done quite a few of these. So you'll gain it in practice. If you even do this. This is one of those things that's very interesting to watch and be like, oh yeah, that's a very interesting little hobby you got there. But again, it is kind of costly. It's very expensive. The materials isn't bad. It's basically the next step. No, 2 steps down the line that cost a little bit more money. So there we go. We wait for those to dry. It takes roughly about 2 hours. So I do have a couple of them that are already dry. That way I can kind of show you the next step. Alright, so I mentioned my respirator. So I'm going to be, it's a Comfo Classic. C-O-M-F-O Classic. And the filters are 43/14s. So if you wear that, you should be good, and you can hear me. It doesn't muffle you too bad. You look like Darth Vader, but okay. So when you're grinding this stuff, again, just pay attention to what you're doing, because you don't want to breathe some of these. So I like to give it a little bit of texture around it, like that. I like to keep it a little bit more organic looking than something that makes some kind of pattern. And I use this to clean up the inside here, just in case I got any of this stuff on the copper. Rings get really hot. I've been touching these for quite some time now, and you get to the point where you don't have any, you can ask a welder how they pick up metal when it's hot. You just get used to it. Of course your hands get kind of rough looking, but so there we go. Can't see it much, but there is kind of a cool pattern in there. And then you got the pattern from the band too. So now what I'm going to do is take some of this graphite conductive paint, Sherry Hobb. I'll put a link into the video where I got this stuff, but you can make this stuff too. You can take graphite and mix it with Tight Bond waterproof glue, and that'll make a really nice, and you mix it until it's like dirt black. I mean like pitch black. More graphite than glue in some cases. but it will be a liquid. There's another formula that I like to use. This is sodium silicate. So you can mix this with that graphite, and again, that's waterproof also. I do adore Sherry Hobbs' product, and I will endorse it. You can mix it down with that distilled water, and you'll find that distilled water, you could go probably about 25% more water in this, and it's still really good to go. You're going to find yourself a brush. This brush will last you forever. All you do is dip it in distilled water when you're done. And what you're doing is now carefully try to get it so it focuses. Carefully painting all the epoxy. You can get some on the copper. You can get some on my kids. You can get some on the copper. You can get some on the gem. Wherever you put this stuff, copper will grow. Try not to get it on too thick though. Totally not editing that out. Kids will be kids. Let them be kids. Alright, so you don't have to get, you can get as detailed as you want. I mean, you could write your name in this stuff if you wanted to. And it will grow in that area where you wrote your name. It's that detailed. Especially even on a small surface. And it's thin enough to do organic stuff. Let's say you were doing an acorn or a seed pod or anything like that. Again, I like to keep it a little haphazard because that way when it does grow, it looks more organic. It doesn't look so manufactured that way. So there we go. This has to dry for 2 hours. Alright, so the next process, I need a piece of wire. I'm going to make it into a hook. Hook like that, and a hook like this. So it's like one of those old Christmas tree hooks for ornaments. So I didn't want to wait the 2 hours for that ring to process, so I'm going to grab one that's already in the line. I got this one. And it's to hang it into something. So let's go find out what that is. Alright, so this is my bath. Let me kind of go into the process of making this stuff a little bit. Maybe I'll post the formula just below the video here. Okay, so we have root killer. This is a very, very easy product to get. Copper sulfate. Blue crystals. Beautiful. So you take copper sulfate. Again, I'll give you the formula below. You're gonna find this. Battery acid. You just have that laying around? Yes. Sulfuric acid. How you get this stuff is very easy. You go to your AutoZone and you say, I bought a battery online. I need acid for it. You can't buy acid in a battery online. They can't ship it to you. So you can buy the acid. You can buy it at Sears too. Don't be sneaky about it. It's not that bad. And then you also need some of this. You get this at Rio Grande. This is pretty important. I tried to formulate some of this based upon like household chemicals, but you can't. Not that I can find. Some say that you can use dandruff shampoo, but I didn't want to put dandruff shampoo in here. Okay, so again, I'll give you the formulas and how it works. Basically, you're boiling distilled water, and then you pour it into a thing of crystals. I use one of these. Don't ever use this for food ever again. So you're going to put your crystals in there. You're going to dump hot water in there first, and then the sulfuric acid. Do not put the sulfuric acid in first and then dump water, and it'll cause a chemical reaction where the acid will superheat. Since it's a plastic thing, it might get to the point where it just leaks out right through the bottom. So just be careful of that. It's not that much sulfuric acid. You're using maybe like a half an ounce of it. So by the time you get done, you end up with 2 quarts of it, and out of the 2 quarts there's half an ounce of sulfuric acid. So you know, it's not hurting you. It stings a little sometimes if you get a cut on you, but other than that, you're fine. You shouldn't put your hand in there because copper sulfate isn't very good for you either. Okay, that was demonstration purpose only. So you can kind of see, here's a ring that's growing copper right now. Okay, cool. So how it works is you have your negative on, and this is a Tupperware bowl that I drilled a hole in, and I have this shaft. This shaft must be cleaned all the time. So this is a very important shaft too, and it's just a piece of copper. It's, I think, 6 gauge copper. You're cleaning it off all the time with a piece of, some of this stuff works, or steel wool. Some of the thicker steel wool. The copper. I used to go to a fancy place and get some really cool copper. Actually, this stuff works really good. It's 3/4 inch pipe. It's the thicker variety, I think M class. You can get it at Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever. The thinner stuff works fine. You will burn through it quickly. So the most of the money here is this stuff right here, this copper. You burn through it a lot. And you can kind of see, I'll take one of these out. Here's what it kind of looks like. You can see how it's eating away at it. My negative is hooked to this. This is my power supply. You can get these for about $124. Very worth it. So what you're doing is you're monitoring this. I start out with about 1.57 or 1.25 amps, and then I start cranking it up as they're growing. And if you crank it up enough, you'll get these really far out looking things that happen on the rings. So a lot of times sometimes I go up to 210 on the amperage, and this will get to about 2.5 volts. If this is dirty, you'll see that the voltage is climbing too high. That's telling you that this is dirty. You got to clean it. So all I'm doing is I'm dangling the ring into the solution, and I can have about 6 or 8 rings in here, but the less you have, the more you have to monitor this. The more you have, the less you have to monitor. For some odd reason, when you get just one in there, it's 0.9 would be the highest, and then maybe once it starts growing for about an hour, then you can turn it up to about 120, maybe 1.2. Cool. So that is the process. What happens now is I do a patina on them. So I'll even show you that. I do some really cool chemical patinas using some fertilizer and taking that down and turning it into a very strong sulfur. And the sulfur is mixed with lye, Lewis the Devil's drain cleaner, and together they make a really cool patina that can be applied and then wiped off. It's a fun process to make. It stinks up the whole neighborhood, but it's great stuff. So I'll show you that. Alright, so I was going to show you how to make patina real quick, and this is just a verbal kind of solution to it. I'm not going to go through or make it in front of you, but this is my chemical formula for it. So you take sulfur, fast-acting sulfur. You can get this in the garden supply center section. It's mixed with calcium. You can see the yellow stuff, that's sulfur. The brown stuff, it's calcium mixed with gypsum and some clay. So what you have to do is you have to strain it out. Basically, how it works, sulfur does not melt in water. It does not dissolve. So what you could do is dissolve away all the clay and the calcium until you have the sulfur. You could strain it out in a big strainer and keep adding water to it until all the dirt is through the strainer and all the sulfur is left behind. Okay, so relatively you're going to need, this is a 1.5 inch cap. So you take and you fill this almost up to the rim with sulfur, just a little bit of room towards the top. And again, you can't screw up this formula, it's impossible to screw up. Then you take crystal drain opener. Do not get any of this stuff on your hands. If you do, you'll regret it. And if you do, please use vinegar to take it and deactivate it off your hands. So it does hurt, and it will leave a nice little scar. So you add some of this at the very top. Again, the mixing ratio to this is nothing scientific whatsoever. You put this cap on, I use one of those electric Bunsen's or electric burners that you buy at Lowe's or Home Depot. It's a junky one, but it works out quite well. You do it outside. You let it set out there and dissolve for at least 15 to 20 minutes. It will get into a brownish goo. This brownish goo is hot as Hades. So what you do is you take this off the burner and you tip it upside down onto a piece of tile. Do not let any of it get on you at all. Then what you do is you let that cool down. Do not add it to any kind of water until it's cooled down, because it will explode. And it will send shards of sulfur and hot salt your way. So don't do it. So let it cool down all the way, add it to water, and then you'll get this. Okay? So I added that to, so you can see the black stuff at the bottom. After a while, what I did is I filtered it through a coffee can filter or a coffee filter, just to get most of the sulfur and some of the parts of the drain cleaner out of it. So now it's just a pure liquid. This is highly concentrated. Now, let me show you the advantage of making your own stuff, even if you're very uncomfortable around using chemicals. This little bottle right here, you get at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. This thing is $9, okay? And it's liver of sulfur. This stuff, I could probably have 20 of these bottles, if not 30 of these bottles in this one bottle, okay? That's how strong this stuff is. You can add it straight onto the metal and it'll turn it pitch black, which is kind of cool. Or you can mix it with distilled water, just in 2 or 3 drops in a frat boy cup. You can mix it like that much up to water with about 2 to 3 or 4 drops of it, and bam, you got a very nice patina that will turn a light brown. So I just wanted to show you kind of like what I was doing as far as mixing is concerned. Again, it's not scientific, but I played around with it enough. I've done it about 4 or 5 times for friends, and yeah, good stuff. Really good stuff. Good patina. It goes on steel, stainless steel, and stainless steel it turns like a light blue. If you mix it right and you get the right concentrating, sometimes you'll get it to the point where it can turn just about any color within the spectrum of gray all the way up to blue and red. So you can do some kind of mixing around. All you do is put a ring in there, add a few drops, see what color it turns when you bring it into the oxygen. Then immediately dunk it into baking soda. Baking soda will stop the reaction and keep it that color on the metal. Alright, so let me get a ring around and then I'll show you the process of clear coating it too. So just before I patina it, I will take and polish it out. If you wear a welding glove for this, it works out quite well. Very careful on it will fly out of your hands. But I built this little box right here, so makes it so when it flies back, it hits the box. Okay. So you can see how shiny that gets. Very shiny. Now you can see some of the areas in here, some of the cracks and crevices have this black stuff in it. And I use Denrex, which is a dandruff shampoo, mixed with baking soda to get out all the black areas. See, you can see the blackness? That is that stuff right there. So I gotta go Denrex this. How did I discover that? It's got sulfuric acid in it. You gotta get the kind with the conditioner, of course, but it's got sulfuric acid, and which is weird because if you mix it with baking soda, it becomes canceled out. But it does actually do a good job of getting out all of the pumice that I put on here. Cool. So I do that first before I patina it. Be right back. So this is what I was talking about. Denrex dandruff control. Man, is this stuff awesome. Cleaning jewelry, woo, it will clean that jewelry. Again, mix it with baking soda for a tooth, and voila, you get a really shiny ring. Okay, so the next step, I usually add some water to this, but I'm going to give you what it looks like without the water. Paper towel in my hand. Now this is at a very low dilution, so the sodium hydroxide that's in it, usually that's, again, very bad for your skin. But since the dilution rate has gone down quite a bit, seriously, it's a hand cleaner now. The sodium hydroxide is also used in soap manufacturing. Do not ever get in anything in your eye, though. One drop will turn you blind. Be careful. That's why in the olden days they had the people that washed their laundry, and you would get the blind lady because she would get lye in her eyes. Of course, that's from movies, right? I'm looking for a brush. Oh, that'll work. Okay, I've stalled you long enough to get a brush. I'm dipping this in the full solution of this. Immediately wipe it off. Look at that gorgeous red, right? Amazing. And now it's turning blue. You have blue and red and a few other colors in there. It's just freaking amazing. But you gotta put it on very quickly and wipe it off almost immediately. Be rough with it. The rougher you are, the more colors you'll get. So we get like this little workflow going. Alright, so talk about clear coating. I've tried a lot of clear coats, no doubt about it. I'm very happy with this product right here. It's Protecta Clear. It is very solvent resistant. The only solvent that touches it is xylene. So xylene thins epoxies and enamels. So that's the only thing that pretty much grabs it. And what's really nice about it, let's say I want to take the enamel off for some reason. I could take it off and there is no residue whatsoever. It evaporates within the xylene. And that means I could always reapply a patina to it. I could maybe solder it. Maybe if I need to take this ring and size it down, I could dip it in xylene, do a resolder on it, repatina it, and put another coat of Protecta on it, and bam! It's an easy process. Well, not too easy, but pretty good. Okay, so how you apply this is brain dead dumb. Get yourself a pair of really long tweezers and dip and drip, and then hang it upside down. There we go. Just hung it upside down. Let it set for probably about 2 hours and reapply. Reapply 2 coats to it, or apply 2 coats in all. And after all that is done, now you have a ring. So, I hope you liked the little series I put together. It just basically walks you through the process, my process for creating jewelry. You can use this process for making earrings, necklaces, great deal of things. So, you know, there's no end to it. It's all the creativity. So I kind of think of it as like the bones. You're creating the bones and letting the copper grow around the bones. It's how you shape those bones. That's where the art comes in. No doubt about it. All right. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.